It was really hard many times, but I'm really proud of myself that I could lower my expectations and got to this point.
Hi, you are listening to the AK Compass, guiding listeners through evolving ideas, directions. Your hosts are Karolina, Czako, communications and sustainability expert with 10 years living abroad and a love for traveling.
And Ágnes Gárdonyi, journalist who regularly covers many sustainability and travel-related topics.
In this podcast, we will discuss exciting destinations and social and environmental topics from all around the world, along with related non-political current affairs. Our goal is to provide informative and engaging interviews about travel, sustainability, and more.
We will bring you many people from different walks of life, sharing their stories from trips and living abroad. We also invite experts from all across the sustainability sector.
We would like to thank our sponsor, the Sweet Home Studio, for making this podcast possible. Their mission is to bring important social topics to Hungarian audiences. They also give new podcasters a great price to support more valuable content. They are based in Budapest, offering full technological support and a great space to make podcasts.
I'm Ágnes Gárdonyi, freelancer in journalism and communication. I mainly cover culture, science, and sustainability. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook.
And I am Karolina Czako. I'm a communication and sustainability consultant. As a freelancer, I work across countries, the EU. I'm based in Hungary. You can turn to me for non-ESG related sustainability projects and also communications and PR. And feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or on the AK Compass podcast Gmail address as well, which you can find in the About section. In this episode, we are going to discuss traveling with children. This demands thoughtful, practical planning to ensure everyone stays comfortable, happy, and engaged throughout the journey. Prioritizing familiar routines, portable entertainment, flexible schedules, and child-friendly logistics transforms potential chaos into enjoyable family bonding time. Ági, as an experienced and well-traveled mother, shares her tips. Ági, this is a very, very interesting topic, and I think you can also help people with families and also people who don't have children to travel together peacefully and enjoyably. So I'm very glad to ask you questions about your tips.
Thank you for this topic. First, I have to make a disclaimer. I have experience only with traveling with one child and some experience with traveling with 2 or 3. But anyways, the parents are the ones who know their children. So the following are just tips that worked for me and could work for others as well.
How do you pack light yet prepare for kids' changing needs for a trip?
Packing light with kids is really about focusing on the essentials and accepting that you can't prepare for every situation. Even on a month-long trip for my child, for example, I used to pack just 2 pairs of trousers for going out and 1 for staying at the accommodation. In general, I brought clothes for only 3 or 4 days because I always try to find a place to do laundry. For children, of course, books are essential. I prefer books over screens. But when it comes to toys, I usually pack only 2 or 3 of those because when you travel, there are so many new impressions that small kids will happily play with and enjoy. For example, they could play with a chair or even a piece of string, so you don't have to overthink this. For a long time, we used cloth diapers with my son, and the cloth diaper took up a lot of space in the luggage, but it was important for me because I wanted to avoid creating so much waste with disposable diapers. It was also better for his skin, but okay, this cloth diapers is really another topic. I also remind myself that almost everything else can be bought if necessary. Once you accept that you don't have to carry a solution for every possible problem, packing becomes so much simpler and traveling feels much lighter and stress-free. The only exception for me was bringing medicine with us. I always carried the basics like eardrops because my son was prone to ear infections. I preferred bringing the ones we already had open at home instead of buying new ones on the road. Again, for me, that was also part of trying to reduce unnecessary waste.
Yeah, so you're also thinking about your child and keeping him comfortable, but you're also trying to do things sustainably. And now that he doesn't use diapers anymore, I guess it's even easier now.
As a matter of fact, he does need diaper for the night, but I just couldn't find any cloth diapers which can bear a night. So I simply gave up on that. But I can say that I did a lot regarding my standards to avoid creating so much waste. So this is as much as I could do. But this is really another topic. But essentially, it is what you just said, that I try to be sustainable, do what I can, and travel and have fun in the meantime.
And it's also good that you take medication from home, because then you don't have to figure out where the pharmacy is or if they have that kind of medication, because it can happen that they don't. Especially the further you travel, the different the medications become. So it's a smart idea to at least take that, even if it adds to the luggage. So for entertainment, what entertainment tricks keep children or your child occupied during long flights, train rides, or road trips?
A lot of small children hate traveling by car because they don't like being strapped in. That was the case with my son. So I started traveling by train and bus with him. It might seem like this takes longer, but not necessarily. Because even when you travel by car, you still have to stop to change diapers, breastfeed, have a drink, or just let the kids get out and move around. On a train, for example, you can walk up and down the aisle and you don't have to focus on the road. It does take energy because you're constantly following your child. But once you accept that young kids simply cannot sit still for long, traveling this way becomes much less stressful. And I'm not here to mom shame anyone. I say this with love. Try not to give small children a mobile screen during the trip. It might help for 20 minutes, but afterward, it's much harder to keep them busy without it. Kids are really clever. If they know a phone is an option, they will keep asking for it.
I will actually challenge you on this a little bit, because when I was traveling between Stockholm and Budapest, there was a father and a son, and they were sitting behind me both times. And the screen was the only thing that stopped the kid from kicking me, because I asked the father to put the child on the aisle seat and he should sit in the middle, so the child kicks outwards and not only at me. And we kind of had a small argument about it, but the thing is, it was a 2-hour-long flight and I didn't want to be kicked, obviously. And the child was in my personal space. And then he finally came up with the idea to take out his tablet, and it saved me in my case. Like, I understand your point about screen time, that it's not good for children, but as a person who is trying to just relax during a trip, the parents should just figure it out and not say, like he said, like, children are free and that he can't control the child. And if he can't, who can?
That can be a common answer, that parents cannot control their child, and it can be challenging to be a parent. But from sitting here where I am at the moment, I would have stood up with that kid and go just up and down. I know it was on the plane, but you can get up during the flight. So they could have get up a couple of times and just look at the things there are on the plane that could have occupied the kids. So that's not an answer that they cannot control the child. I mean, it is an answer, but there is always a solution. It might take up more energy and work from the parent, but on the long run, it is much more effective and better for the child if you can control them, because children, this can lead to another topic which we are on at the moment, but somehow it connects. So children can be stressed out because they have so much control given to them by the parent that it is stressful. So this is not a new thing. Everything is stressful in our life because there are so many impacts. But if you give a decision and so much freedom to a child that they can do anything, kicking is a no-go for me. So if they kick, I will stop them. I will put my hand gently on their leg or do some physical, not hitting them, but do something.
Restrain them, maybe.
Exactly. Or just get up or occupy them or get out a book or some fidgeting tool or something like that.
Walking around sounds like a very humane idea, and I think it's also good because then it gives the other traveler some space as well after some kicking sessions.
Yeah, so, and of course, others, we could ask for some patience from other travelers as well, because children can be loud. They cannot sit still because they are children, but the parents should try to restrain their children, because if they don't, it will be harder and harder as they grow up. So I understand your point that it was easy for that moment to use screen, but on the long run it's not good. And on the next flight it will be harder or the same or harder to solve the same problem. So
it can be addictive to use screens, and then they will need more and more. So I get your
exactly
points.
So instead of a screen, you should bring books, which I already mentioned, fruits and healthy snacks, because eating also helps take up time. And running up and down the aisle can be a great activity, even on a flight.
Thank you for that. How do you keep children potentially disturbing strangers, such as using quiet toy snacks or scheduled breaks on flights, public transport, or at times when you need to stay in lines or take a break? I've seen some good examples and some bad examples from parents during my travels, and I really hope that you can share some good examples that parents can implement during their travels.
I don't want to say that I always do everything good or better than anyone else. I just have tried to find the tools which could help. So, for example, many trains have family coaches. And if there isn't one, yes, I try to shush my child if he gets loud, because I do care for up to a certain point what others say or think. But if this doesn't work, that's normal. They are children, so sorry, but not sorry. With my son, for example, this has sometimes been an issue that he couldn't, that he was too loud. So he can be loud, and I've received a few comments from people on public transport, for example. Once a woman on a bus told me that just because I have a small child with me, I shouldn't think I have the right to sit down.
That's so mean.
Yeah, there are these people, okay. I cannot do anything about that, because if they think like that, they think like that. So I try to ignore them and focus on my child, but it is not always easy because we live in a society, of course, yeah. So for queuing or traveling on public transport, this is, of course, much easier when there's more than one adult with a child, but often that's not the case, so you have to be alone with 1, 2, or 3 children. I also tend to have a lot of baggage with me, so I used to carry my son on my back when he was little instead of in a stroller. That way both of my hands were free for the things I needed to carry. And honestly, traveling with a stroller is usually harder with public transport. In some cities, it is easier. For example, in Vienna, where you can see children even 4 or 5 years old, still in strollers. But overall, I prefer using a child carrier. Of course, if you're back and of course your child can handle it, because not every kid likes that.
What family-friendly accommodations or transport options work best with kids?
I often traveled alone with my son, so when it came to accommodation, I usually chose a one-bedroom place. I knew that later when we got home, it might make it harder for him to sleep in his own bed, like before. But honestly, if your child needs you, I think it's okay to give in sometimes. For some children, physical closeness and body contact are really important, and if they need that, it's essential to give it to them. I know it sounds like a cliche, but these moments won't come back. Parents need to remind themselves of that from time to time. I certainly do that and try that as well.
I love this idea and this approach of yours.
And as for transport, as I mentioned earlier, traveling by train instead of a car is not only better for the environment, but often better for children too. Public transport gives them many more impressions and experiences, which are both important for their development. Sometimes parents feel they have to constantly organize special activities to help their child develop, but often it's enough to simply let them live and experience things on their own. Let them try new situations and explore the world, of course, while preparing them for possible risks, but without expressing too much fear as a parent. Because if children constantly sense that fear, they may grow up afraid of the world.
That's very true.
And eventually there will be a time when parents aren't there and children will have to deal with situations on their own. In that sense, everyday experiences like traveling by train or using public transport can actually prepare them for life much better than always going everywhere by car. So traveling is a life experience. So if you think about it like that, then you can more easily switch to train from a car, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it also makes them feel more independent, and that's very useful. And I guess we both grew up in Budapest, and here we are lucky enough that it was pretty much safe for us to use public transport or to use trains. Like, I mostly use public transport inside Budapest, but it was, I got used to it because my family wasn't always taking me by car everywhere. My grandmother used to take me by bus, so I kind of knew the routes and everything. It was good to grow up that way, so it wasn't unusual or uncomfortable to use public transit. How do you involve children in a trip planning to build excitement? Do they take part in some aspects of the planning?
I have experience only with a small child, so with them, involving them in decisions isn't really an option. I already talked about this a bit. Making decisions is already tiring, even for adults. But as children grow, they can and they should be included in planning. Of course, not just for traveling, but for other things in life. At the same time, traveling with kids means lowering your expectations a bit and leaving more time to simply do nothing and plan less. You can't expect to keep a tight schedule or visit every museum and site with a small child. So traveling with a child is slower, and that's okay.
I think that's a great thought at the end. And I hope that those are listeners out there who travel with children will be more confident and they won't feel alone with these challenges they might face. And there are many solutions, and lowering the expectation in a good way to just be. I think adults also need that. We always try to be on, and we should be sometimes be just off and relax as well.
Yes, and also another disclaimer that I wasn't born like this, that I knew all these. So this knowledge, if we can say that, came with experience. And it was really hard many times, but I'm really proud of myself that I could lower my expectations and got to this point. And I am still on the road towards a much stress-free and calm life. So I'm still learning.
Thank you, Aggie, for sharing your tips. And we'll continue with the next episode. That was it for today's episode. You've been listening to the AK Compass, guiding listeners through evolving ideas and directions. I'm Karolina, Czako.
And I'm Ágnes Gárdonyi. Subscribe, rate, and review if you'd like to support us. Thank you for listening.